A while ago, my oldest sister, who had run away from home 10 years ago and who had not contacted us in all that time, suddenly came back in the middle of the night. There was only me in the house then to receive her since our parents were out for the night. My sister seemed scared of something and she kept trembling. "Please, don't leave me alone. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back." She cried and clung to me desperately. She was in a total panic and all I could do was take her to the old room on the first floor, which had been left exactly as it was as when she left 10 years ago, and laid her down on the bed. Thinking it would calm her down, I said, "I'll bring you something to drink," and tried to go out of the room. My sister cried, "Don't go, please, please, please don't go. I'm scared, I'm scared." The moment I stepped out of the room, the door banged shut behind me on its own, and from inside the room, I heard my sister scream, "The green man is coming! The green man is coming! The green man is coming!" When I finally managed to pry the door open, my sister had already disappeared. I looked under the bed, in the wardrobe, and in the loft, but there was no trace of her anywhere. We still have her tattered shoes at the front door. It wasn't a dream, she just disappeared. There was a girl whose grandmother had fallen seriously ill. One night her family got a call saying the grandmother was in critical condition. The girl's parents said to her, "We have to go to grandma's tonight. Stay here and look after your little brother. We'll call you if anything happens with grandma." Then they left. That night the girl stayed up in case her parents called her with some news of her grandmother, and it was past midnight when she heard the phone ring. "Hello?" said the girl. "Hello." It was her grandma's voice, although it sounded deeper and quieter than usual. "I'm in a wonderful place right now. Are you coming too?" Before the girl could answer, the phone abruptly went dead. Some time later, the girl got another call, this time from her parents. What they told her was that their grandmother had passed away, and the time she died was exactly the same time as when the girl received that strange phone call. A young mother was caring for a newborn baby on her own. One day the mother left her baby at home and went out for shopping, but on the way home she met with an accident and died. She carried nothing to identify herself at the time and there was no hope of finding her relatives, so she was buried alone, without no one realizing that she had a little baby left back in her room. A few weeks later, the dead mother's landlord, who realized that this tenant was falling behind on rent, made a visit to her room. He knocked on the door, but obviously there was no answer. He asked the next door neighbors of his tenant's whereabouts, but got no useful information. She must have run away, thought the landlord, and fetched the master key. When he went inside, the room was dark and all the windows were shut. He tried to switch the lights on, but it was no use since the power supply had been cut off. He looked around in the dark. The room looked as though someone was still living in it. The furnitures were still there, and a black Cupid doll was left lying in the middle of the floor. She must have left it in a great hurry and had no time to take anything with her. The landlord mused, and stooped down to pick up the Cupid doll, but the moment he touched it, the doll crumbled apart. At the same time, he saw so many cockroaches scurry away, and all there was left in his hand was a skeleton of a baby. There was a college student, we call him D, who loved pulling people's legs. For example, D would go to a restaurant with 3 friends, and when the waiter asked, "4 persons?" D would say, "Come on, look more carefully. There are 5 of us." D would do this often, and people began to think D could really see it, but of course, couldn't see anything, really. He was just amusing himself by watching people's reaction. No matter how many times his friends told him to stop it, all D would do was just laugh at them. One day, D, who was always with someone when he ate, thought he would eat alone for a change, and went into a restaurant all by himself. He sat down at the table, and a waiter brought him a glass of water and put it down in front of him, and in front of the seats opposite D's. That's weird, D thought. Of course, there was no one apart from D at the table. Maybe there was someone here just before I came in, and the waiter thought that that person was with me. Oh well, I'll just move to another table if someone comes back. The waiter came to take orders. D ordered a spaghetti dish. By that time, all other diners had left the restaurant, and D became the only diner there. It seemed now certain that the waiter made a mistake. After a while, the waiter brought him the dish, and to D's dismay, he again put the same dish in front of the opposite seat. "Why do you put 2 dishes when there's only me here?" D said to the waiter angrily. The waiter, surprised, looked around him quickly. "That's strange. I'm sure I saw there was 2 of you." Then D talked to the manager, who was at the door when D came into the restaurant, but he too said D was not alone but walked in with someone else. D became very upset and stormed out of the restaurant. Now being, he thought, at the receiving end of the joke he used to play himself, he realized how uncomfortable it felt. He swore he would never do it again. But that was only the beginning. From then on, every time he went out, people saw someone else beside D. Everywhere he went, whoever he met, D was seen with someone. Even on a very crowded train, people made space, just enough for one person, only in front of D. "Someone is following me." D couldn't bear going out anymore. He grew paranoid, lost a lot of weight, and became a completely different person. For many months, he continued to live like a hermit. He stayed in just so that he wouldn't have to deal with the other person. Many days had passed. D gradually came to imagine that, after such a long time, the other person must have gone to somewhere else. He stepped outside for the first time in ages. The air outside felt fresh and good. D went into a random restaurant. The restaurant had a lively atmosphere and D felt quite relaxed. However, he was still scared of sitting at a table, so he chose to sit at the empty bar counter. I had been stupid, D thought. There was nothing I should be scared of. He couldn't have felt any better. "Welcome," the waiter said, and put down a glass of water in front of D, and he put another glass down next to D, and still another one next to it, and another one after that, and another one after that, and then another one after that. I come from a small village in the Shikoku region. This is a story I heard nearly 20 years ago, when I was still a junior high school student. Later, about a year after the incident in the story took place, I met the very person who experienced it and was able to check the truth of it myself. There was a boy called A who was 2 years younger than me. One evening in August, during a summer holiday, A was taking a nap at home while he waited for the supper to be ready. Sometime later, A woke up and, with a torch in his hand, stepped out into the garden. A described later that his mind was half in a dream state and could not understand why he woke up at all. One of A's family members saw him in the garden but didn't pay any attention to him, thinking he was just out for a walk. The time was around 7 p.m. In the garden, A saw 6 people standing there. He didn't remember anything about their sex, age, or appearance, but he just thought there were 6 people. As soon as the 6 people acknowledged A, they started walking towards the mountain. A's house itself was on the slope of a mountain. Even though A was half in a dream state and didn't have a clue about who they were, he didn't feel scared. The only thought that occupied his mind was that he should follow them, and he did so, almost as if he was being drawn to a magnet. Although the so-called mountain was more like a steep hill, it was still quite high. The 6 people gathered around A and walked on. Before A knew, it got all dark around him. Moreover, the 6 people who surrounded him no longer seemed like people. They had become mere presences. By this time, A had come to understand that they were not people at all, but in spite of the realization, he felt no fear and kept walking. A was still half dreaming. The presences around him kept whispering between themselves, but he couldn't hear exactly what they were talking about. Some time passed before something tapped the torch. It was an insect that had been attracted to the light, and at the same moment, the 6 presences which surrounded A disappeared, and their voices also ceased. A regained consciousness instantly. When he looked around, he was alone in an area of the mountain he had never seen. The only source of light was the torch he was holding. Being overcome by a sudden rush of fear and confusion, he ran back home. When he finally managed to meet his family who had come out looking for him, it was already a few minutes before midnight. Later, A's family heard from a Taiyu, the priest of Izanagi Ryu, which is religion, that what A encountered were those who had been lured by the 7 Misaki, and they came to make A to be the 7th. If he had not come back before midnight, he would have been dead. But since A's grandmother prayed at an altar every day, a god came to A's rescue, using the insect as his medium. Certainly there is a well-known place in our region where once upon a time a woman who was betrayed by a lover killed herself and became 7 Misaki. After her death, men died in succession under mysterious circumstances. A Taiyu tried to purify the place, but he gave up, claiming that this power is too strong for me to purify. But the death of the woman happened such a long time ago, and I heard quite a number of people died back then, that I suppose that they already had the required number of deaths to appease the spirits. I used to swim around the cursed place, it was by the sea, without any worry. In the end, we could never find out why they came for A. Apart from this incident, A has never experienced anything out of the ordinary up until now. At the time, I used to get scared imagining that one day they might come for me too. This is all I have to tell. Thank you for reading my story.
Letting the blow, plus getting the dough. We be checking your hole while you sweating the flow. I be's intellectual, incredible, flexible. I turn the virgin sexual, impeccable, but technical. I be the first letter, you ain't know. Check the alphabetical order. My natural elements, chemical shorter to leave it cruel. More bloodier, dimensional waters. On the 28th, your thoughts are pennyweight. I'ma generate these bonds. Watch as I detonate. At any rate, I separate like races. Niggas segregate you featherweights.